I'm Dean. I'm the dad.
I'm Laura. I'm the mom.
And I'm Krista. I'm the daughter.
And I'm Mr. Mouse. And together we are Family Plot.
And Mr. Mouse is not part of Family Plot.
He's not.
He thinks he is. Well, how is everybody? Welcome. If you're new to the show, welcome. This is going to be an interesting episode for you. But if you are new to the show, hey, hope you enjoy it. Glad you're here. Stick around. Check it out. Hope you like it. If not, well, don't tell anybody. Keep that to yourself. If you do, hey, feel free to share what we do on social media. Also, gotta say, thanks to our returning listeners. We can't do what we do without you. And since this is a second part of our 2-week celebration on all things episode 100 for us, thanks for joining us and making this possible for us. Also want to point out that you can support the show through Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee through various simple, easy ways. So feel free to throw a bone or two our way if you feel, like we deserve it. You don't have to. And remember, with Patreon, even though it's monthly, you can always pause it if you need to, or, just turn it off for a couple months, turn it back on, whatever. We're not trying to hurt anybody. We have been far too strapped ourselves to weigh in against those that can't help us. So, and as I was saying, tonight will be a very special episode, a continuation of our celebration of 100 episodes. Tonight we will do a retrospective of what we've done so far, plus include celebrations and well wishes from other podcast friends and family. Thank you all for getting us to this point.
Yay!
Yay! Haha! I love this show.
The last episode.
No more Mr. Mouse after tonight. I'm just saying, Mr. Mouse got to go. I'm gonna get me some, decon.
I'm gonna go to Anthrocon, and that's the last time y'all are gonna see me. Goodbye.
What a long, strange trip it's been. This next little bit comes from episode 28, our show about internet legends and other worlds. I want to point out that it's part of the introduction to that show, and we never really did get back to it until just now, but this counts. So let me present you with this. The three-headed beast that comes from the east. Okay, that works, except that we're from the Midwest, and there's two girls and a guy, and the girls are beautiful, so it doesn't quite work, but it's a thought I had.
Okay, well, work on it, and we'll come back to that.
Yes, I will work on it, and we will come back to it, because that is what we do. So this next piece comes from episode 18, our episode on Independence Killer, Sharon Kinne, who murdered her husband and then the lady of her boyfriend, his wife. Anyway, Krysta did not like Sharon, and she made that obvious at several points. And this was a couple of episodes before we were joined by Laura, so enjoy this little piece of episode 18. And as the car pulls up into this lover's lane kind of area,
Ew.
John sees what he thinks is a pile of rags in his headlight on the ground. And he doesn't think anything of it. He turns off the car. And Sharon's the one who tells him, no, turn the lights back on. And so he does. And she's like, what's that? And he's like, it's a pile of rags. And she says, I don't think so. And so he goes out. Well, it turns out to be the body of Patricia.
Oh my God! She's 3-timing and she's a lion!
Hey there, Dean, Laura, and Krysta. This is your favorite unknown independent horror author, Dan B. Fierce, here. I just wanted to wish you all a happy 100th episode. That's a huge milestone, and I couldn't be prouder of all of you. I love you, keep those episodes coming, and here's to the 200th and beyond.
So something we've tried to do here at Family Plot is sort of celebrate our home state of Missouri and the things that have happened here and the haunts that exist here, because I kind of feel like the state of Missouri has as much haunting and history as any place else. Just most people outside the state don't know it. One of the things we did episode 62 about the Missouri State Penitentiary and the many hauntings it has. And this next piece is Laura and I talking about some of the famous faces and a couple of haunts at Missouri State Penitentiary.
1925.
Infamous inmate Charles Arthur Pretty Boy Floyd arrives. Gangster and bank robber there.
Gangster and bad mamma jamma as he was.
In 1935, according to the Department of Justice, Missouri State Penitentiary is housing 5,300 inmates, so it's quite crowded.
Just a smidge.
Yeah, and you got to remember, like places like A-Hall, those cells were not much bigger than closets. So,
right, and they're putting 2 or 3 people in each one.
Sometimes 5 and 6. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, when you're in prison and you got to make every inch of space count, that you got to do what you got to do, I guess.
Right. In 1937, the gas chamber is delivered to Missouri State Penitentiary, and it's placed on a cement pad. Prisoners quarry stone from the prison quarry, and the building is built around the cement pad.
Okay, so that must have been an interesting job to be assigned. So you see, what we're gonna have you do here is we're gonna have you dig up some rocks, and you're gonna shape these rocks, and then you're gonna make a wall, and we're gonna surround this big room, and then, Joe Bob, we're gonna put you in a chair, and we're gonna send you to meet your maker.
See, I don't think they let the prisoners who were due for the execution work on the place they had the execution.
I don't know. I feel like that would be a thing they would do.
Well, years ago, there was a prison in Kansas, or a jail in Kansas, I don't remember which, that had a bunch of work done.
Uh-huh.
And when people... They delayed the final paycheck from the day the prison was finished to a couple weeks later. So these guys had to go back to the jail to get their final paycheck.
Uh-huh.
At that point, they were asked to show their identification papers. And if they couldn't, they arrested them. And supposedly, and I don't know how true this is, but supposedly they got a bunch of illegal aliens that way. And I feel like that's kind of a dirty trick, but whatever.
Oh, I mean... You know.
So, based on that, yeah, you're right. But I honestly think that they're probably a little smarter than that. And they're like, if we let Joe Bob work on the new gas chamber, Joe Bob might mess it up. And we're planning on putting Joe Bob in it. Joe Bob can go do something else. Joe Bob can go help make shoes or something.
Uh-huh. Joe Bob. Poor Joe Bob. I hope Joe Bob actually did something bad and isn't just doing time.
Right. Now,
the neighbor killing his wife.
This becomes the location of 40 executions, most of them in the gas chamber. In 1938, plans to develop a hospital on site comes to fruition. Actually, it was just across the street. A modern 5-story building opens with 240 beds and medical files on every inmate. And at the time, it was state of the art. Now, that hospital no longer stands. Once the prison closed down, the federal judges were looking for a building, and they realized if they had that site, they would have a view of the river. And so they decided they wanted that site, but they didn't want the building. So they tore that building down, built a new one. But according to Melanie, that building is still pretty haunted, according to some of the office workers and people who work in it.
Well, cool, I think. That would be cool, right? Yeah, sure.
In 1950, Charles Liston, a.k.a. Sonny, enters Missouri State Penitentiary as an inmate. He learns to box there, and upon his release, goes on to win the National Boxing Championship. And I think he lost it to Muhammad Ali, or a.k.a. Cassius Clay, but I'm not sure what his name was at the time.
I see.
This comes from Danny Borland, longtime friend and longtime listener of the show as well. She lives in Merced, California, which is where Laura, I, and our family lived for a couple of years. And so, like most California, it's a beautiful little community, balmy weather, very nice. And Danny had some very nice things to say to us. Congratulations on your 100th episode. So excited to see what happens next. All my love, Danny. And Danny recently had a baby. Congratulations, Danny. We love you. We miss you. I can't wait to see you sometime soon. So there's that. So when we talk here on the show, oftentimes our topics range from one thing to another. We bounce a little bit. This is from our episode 64, all about the Djinn, or genies as they are. And we bounce from everything from ancient legend to cartoons to pop culture. That's what we do. We're a family. We get a little crazy. Anyway, enjoy. Here's the thing, though. If you go to Judeo-Christian lore, the Djinn were powerful beings all of their own. Mm-hmm. And in fact, one of the things about Solomon, King Solomon from the Bible, is supposedly he had a ring that let him command the Djinn. So, and it is in Judeo-Christian mythos that they sort of become servants to sorcerers. Huh. So basically what we're saying is that what history or folklore seems to say, is that at one point they were viewed as servants to men of power. So it just depends on, because virtually every religion adopted them in some form.
Sure.
And in fact, there is a story, not in the Bible, but there is a story that scholars have found that tells of a jealous Djinn stealing Solomon's ring while Solomon bathed in the River Jordan. And he seated himself on Solomon's throne at his palace and reigned over his kingdom, forcing Solomon to become a wanderer. God compelled the Djinn to throw the ring into the sea. Solomon retrieved it and punished the Djinn by imprisoning him in a bottle.
Ah, I see.
That's why they're in the bottle.
Gotcha.
And 10 million years later, Barbara Eden is living in...
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do.
J.R. Ewing's house in a bottle.
Well, yeah. You know. But in California, not in Texas, because...
Well, yeah, he wasn't J.R. Ewing yet, but I can't remember the actor's name, and I'm very sorry for that.
Now we're going to get letters.
Yes, I know.
And it's not going to be for scary stories.
Now, one story, it says that Solomon forced the Djinn to build the Temple of Jerusalem and all of the city as well.
Well, I mean, that would have definitely cut down on man hours.
Talk about never having a friend like me.
Absolutely. What do you want, indeed?
I want to not have to pay union prices. That's what I want.
If this is this a reference to a movie or something?
Oh, about 50, but you're all right, baby.
Oh my goodness, I am out of it. Bye.
So let's talk Djinn abilities, right? We've said
that was my initial question. We took the scenic route to get back to it, but it's good.
They could turn into animals, any animal they wanted.
Uh-huh.
Some of them could turn invisible, the more powerful ones at any rate.
Sure.
And while in some of the later stories it became constrained as something they could only use for other people, but some of them could simply bring about whatever they willed. So if one willed a pile of gold, it had a pile of gold. So that makes them like ancient Green Lanterns minus the ring.
But they could have the ring if they wanted it.
Yeah, and if there's any Djinn listening, I would like a Green Lantern ring. I don't know that I have much will, but I'm willing to learn.
Well, that is a step towards in the right direction.
I mean, I only quit smoking because of Chantix, and, well, I'm pretty hefty, so I can't quit eating, so maybe my willpower is not the strongest. Maybe a yellow lantern ring, I'll take that. I'm good with fear. I'm good with causing fear. Now, we often have guests on our show. In fact, this next bit is the cast of Drunk Theory, good podcast friends of ours, and we are discussing the Third Eye Man, a South Carolina cryptid, and since they live there, I chose to have them on the show as kind of the experts on the local side of things. And, of course, things get out of hand, as it always does with Drunk Theory, and, well, I share the clip here. Good enough. All right, so let's move on to now this is my actual favorite cryptid in South Carolina, and that is the Third Eye Man at the University of South Carolina. Oh my God.
I had never heard of this either. I looked it up and started reading, but then I thought I want you to be the one to tell me about it.
Okay, well, it begins with years ago in the University of South Carolina, there used to be these underground tunnels. They called them the catacombs. And you would use them to get from one class to another because apparently South Carolina has some cold winters or whatever. And so if you can go places underground and not like get rained on, snowed on, whatever, it's better. Well,
that was the first thing. Like, I do not think that South Carolina is the place that this sort of shit would have been built. Absolutely not. They don't give a fuck about us. They tell us we have to go to school when it's cold. They don't care about us. Well, but we don't have cold weather and everything. Like, and this would be in Columbia, that's even less cold than right here. So they would not need to build like tunnels and shit. Unless they built it for weird science shit and then just told everybody that it's for weather. Yeah. But nobody will believe that it's for weather. That's what I'm saying. Like, it is, right? Okay.
So here we are, 1947. Some college kids are drinking, because that's a thing. And they see this guy climb out of the sewers, which is linked to their catacombs, and he's dressed all in silver. When he turns around, he's got this third eye on his head, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're freaky!" And they run away. Which, to be fair, if I saw a guy with an eye in the middle of his head, I would probably run away too. And they tell the police, and the police go and look, and they can't find him. And so at first, it's just this urban legend that starts going around the University of South Carolina campuses. Don't go into the catacombs. There's a third eye man. Well, a few years later, guys are downstairs in the catacombs drinking, and they get attacked by this guy in the same silvery outfit the third eye man was wearing. And a few of them did report he had the third eye in the center of his head. So after that, the campus was like, fine, nobody's going in these tunnels. They're off limits. To this day, students still go in those tunnels. And all you got to do is go on Reddit because people talk about how they drink down there. And they still see him. But the thing that strikes me, as much as I love this, because I want this to be true more than any other cryptid in South Carolina, this is awesome to me. But the problem is he's only ever been seen by people who are drinking, drunk, or high. That's not a good track record for eyewitnesses. Or at least that I'm aware of. And you can't count the sightings on Reddit because it's Reddit. So
you saying I wouldn't be a good eyewitness?
I'm not saying you wouldn't be a good eyewitness. I'm just saying, when you're dealing with eyewitness testimony, when the first things that they say is, well, I was drunk, it knocks a leg out from the story before they ever tell it. Because to the average listener, they're like, well, he was drunk. That explains it right there. They stop listening at that point. Or I was high. Well, he just said he was high. I don't have to listen anymore. Clearly, he's hallucinating or she's hallucinating. I'm saying what it does is it reduces your credibility, whether it's true or not. And trust me, this is one, like I said, I want to believe in this so much. I want to believe in this more than I do the swamp monster.
Can you still get down there?
Apparently you can. People on Reddit talk about drinking down in those catacombs quite a bit.
Oh my God, you don't want to. Why not?
But my problem is again, Reddit is less reliable than drunks. You know, I mean, you read a story on Reddit, you almost certainly know it's not true. And I mean, it just, anytime I have to use a story from Reddit as an example for anything, I tell my listeners, hey, this is from Reddit, so take it with a grain of salt. And that's sort of where I'm at. But
hey, Dad, do you know where the phrase grain of salt came from?
I don't. Where did it come from?
I don't know either. That's why I'm asking. I mean, that's typically my whole point on here, so I'm asking questions.
Okay, let's find out.
I also don't know. I don't know either.
Google is a thing. Oh, you have my phone. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's going to be something weird.
It was on the exploding kitten box.
But, see, I was hoping one of you had been to the University of South Carolina, because I was going to ask you, you know, what's the nightlife like? What's the area like? Try to get a sense of it.
Me and him went once to see Daniel Tosh, and we only saw the last 5 minutes of it because we were stuck in traffic the whole fucking time.
Oh, no.
Graduation once, that's it.
Yeah, we went. That was Christmas graduation, right?
No, I wasn't sure.
Then I don't know. Yeah, no, we were. Oh, shit! You know who fucking went to USA? Fucking Alicia. Oh, shit! That's Alicia! I don't even know.
What?
We have a friend that went to USC. We know somebody that went to USC. We're going to get the inside scoop on this.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, that's its meaning. Where does it come from? Oh, okay. Take something with a grain of salt is a reference to salt merchants, which I guess used to be kind of unscrupulous.
Huh. So they used to, cheat their people or something?
Yeah, I guess salt merchants in England for a while were kind of unscrupulous and would overcharge people. Like they would put something in the salt, so your 8 ounces of salt was actually 6 ounces in a penny or something. So apparently, yeah, if you take something with the greatest salt, you're a bit skeptical.
That makes sense.
So, well, talk to Alicia. Somebody call her, or you know. Actually, you know what? I was going to say, you know what? Don't. Get in touch with her and let us know, because we can release it as an update or an extra.
Did you show them the sticker they sent you on your phone?
I just want to know if the tunnels even exist.
I
Because
didn't.
if they do, and it's a place where people get drunk, she absolutely got drunk there. But I could not even imagine why there would be a reason to build tunnels there.
You're bored. It's not
What was there before it was USC? Would there have been a reason, was it something that had tunnels before, and then they built USC on it?
This bit of well-wishing comes from longtime friend of mine named Michael Blanton. Very nice guy, married to a very nice gal, who once saved me while I was performing in a bar. She loves that story. Anyway, Mike writes, congratulations to Family Plot on its 100th episode. I remember when Dean first told me about this idea for a podcast. It's hard to believe they've already done 100 episodes. Here's looking forward to the next 100. And again, that's from Mike Blanton. Thank you very much, Mike. I've been friends with Mike since high school, so we go back a little bit. And it coming from him, that's high praise indeed. Now, this next bit comes from episode 41, our episode all about the Greys, and it's the shortest discussion of what most people kind of think a Grey looks like, and, what the experience is like. Here we go. People describe aliens they have encountered. The Grey is the most common version.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so, yeah, that's... And when I think of alien, generally I think of a Grey.
And when people talk about abduction, it is almost always the Greys who are involved.
Well, sure.
Although occasionally they will have what I like to call the blues, which are, again, these tiny blue humanoids that are like menial kind of drones or something.
I can't say I'm real familiar with that, but...
Those are the ones, if they're not Greys, that's what you hear about, is these little mini blue guys. Okay. But most of them, it's the blues. Most of them, it's the Greys. Okay. In fact, if you were to ask most people what aliens look like, the response they would give you would be a Grey.
Well, yeah, that's what I just said.
Now, depending on who you encounter, the Greys are either taller dudes from 6 to 8 feet tall to shorter dudes of 3 to 4 feet tall. But otherwise, they're quite similar. Gray skin, holes for ears, a tiny hole for a mouth.
Little bitty tiny holes for a nose.
Yes.
Can't even see the hole.
Right. And some researchers out there claim that there's many different kinds of Greys. And some names of these include the Zeta Reticulans, the Bellatrix Greys, the Grey Type C, and more. But the ones that you hear about constantly are the tall and the shorter ones with big black eyes.
Wow.
Now, Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 is a binary star system visible from the southern hemisphere, approximately 38 light years away. This star system consists of 2 stars, one slightly smaller than our own sun, in the Milky Way, and the other almost the same mass as our sun. Both stars are much older than our own sun at around 8 billion years old and dying, while our sun is in its middle age at 4.5 billion years old. This is the area that they told Betty Hill that they came from, was this area. And that does add a certain amount of believability to it, because if you're talking about an 8 billion year old dying star, then maybe, just maybe, you'd be looking around for some new real estate to move to. And sharing this planet with us pesky humans might not be the worst idea you ever had, if you can get us to behave, which is the hard part of dealing with humans.
That is no lie.
That is no lie whatsoever.
I have that problem with you guys all the time.
Yep. Don't worry, I'm not as bad as she's making me out to be.
What problems do you have with me?
We were talking about the Greys, weren't we?
We were. Now, as for birth, since in ways that they're born, since the Greys are almost never described as wearing anything, and are almost never described as having any sort of sexual organs whatsoever. They believe that if the Greys are real, they probably reproduce by cloning. Which could be where the gray skin thing comes from.
Well, sure.
Form clones to go to next destination, Earth.
Now, there are some alien researchers that have theorized that the Greys just aren't from outer space at all and may simply be humans from the future that use time travel to visit, which could explain a lot if you think about it.
But that's what you just said you didn't believe.
I don't, but here's their argument, okay? Greys are humans with a larger head because the size of the brain has increased.
Okay.
The tall Greys, which are the ones they think are humans, have grown taller and thinner over time, just as humans have over time. Like, if you go through, we used to be shorter than we are. And you can follow us growing in the fossil record or just chasing our past folks. You know, okay, you know, these people tended to be shorter, these people are a little larger, then you get to us. Fingers have become slender and longer because of less physical labor and more use with computer and robotics, so we've adapted to the environment we're in. So finally, this last piece comes from our two-part episode on the Salem Witch Trials and features our guest, Kate from Ignorance Was Bliss. So yeah, just enjoy this little conversation we had about the death of Giles Corey and where his ghost is seen.
Meant to be a burial marker. It's meant to be a place of memoriam and reflection. But people still absolutely believe that that's a grave. And I'm like, all right, well, look, I can only take down so many of your cute little touristy misconceptions at a time. Want to go to the Harry Potter store?
Yeah, so what I was actually talking about was the Howard Street Cemetery, because while he was not buried there, that is roughly the site where Giles Corey was pressed to death.
Yeah, that's exactly where he was pressed to death. So yeah, it's on one side of, if you stand, there's another, so we do a lot of stone walls here in New England, and if you stand on the stone wall, on one side is the jail, which until about 6 or 8 months ago, approximately, was a lovely bar and grill and 80s arcade bar. That has moved downtown, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they put in there in its place. It's always been a restaurant since I've lived here, but it's never been the same restaurant for any amount of time. I think they need to give in and lean into the, hey, we're a jail and it's pretty creepy, come hang out. But what do I know? And so on one side is the old Salem jail with right now a vacant restaurant, and on the other side is the Howard Street Cemetery. And somewhere in between the Howard Street Cemetery and the water, which there's a little sort of a brackish, is that a word that you use in there? Yeah. It's like a mix between freshwater and saltwater. It's like like an inlet from Salem Harbor. So it fills up when we have flooding, and it fills up during particularly high tides. Other times it never all the way empties out, but other times the water level gets very low. And that's at that point in time was more open waterfront. A lot of Salem is reclaimed land. Right. And so it was somewhere in a, baseball diamond size area of land. We don't know the exact spot where he was pressed to death. And Howard Street Cemetery is the closest outdoor spot you can get.
Right, and that's, yeah. But it makes sense for Giles Corey to be seen there because that's where he died. If you believe the spirits discorporate, that makes sense. I buy him being seen at Proctor's Ledge, as that's a monument for buried witches. And his spirit seems to walk Salem quite a bit, which to me makes a certain amount of sense. So I'll buy him being seen there. I'll buy him being seen at the old jail. I don't buy him being seen at a restaurant downtown, far and away from where everything happened. Why? He likes the nightlife there? Why?
I mean, that's Turner Seafood is probably what you're thinking about. It's sort of a local restaurant that has I don't know if it's still open. I don't leave my house, but the Turner Seafood had a reputation as being like one of the most haunted restaurants in Salem. But that's all. Salem's really small. The footprint of Salem is really small. We only have about, I think at the last census, it was like 35,000 or 40,000 citizens that live here.
Thanks again to Bill Barrett for our theme music. If you need theme music, Bill Barrett at sbcglobal.net. That'll reach him. And like I said, it's BEHRENDT. And yeah, just reach out to him. He will write you a genius theme song, I'm sure, or whatever you need. Also want to say thanks to Paige Elmore of Reverie True Crime.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you, Paige.
That's for our logo art. Thanks to Aaron Gnurk of the Big Dumb Fun Show for promoting us locally. Remember to join our Facebook group. Follow us on Twitter. Follow me and Krysta on Instagram. Follow me on Pinterest. Follow Krysta on TikTok, where we have a ton of those show-themed content in all those places.
Woo-hoo!
Bye.
Bye.